What to expect after your free trial at my CLA classes. Thank you for joining me on this, my journey into the constraints-led approach for BJJ. My name is Sam Battlefields, and today you're going to experience my introduction to my new students who have recently done a free trial at one of our classes. In the last few months, I've had the privilege of introducing a number of new students to my class and realised it would be good to have an onboarding video that provides an introduction to the process and gives a brief understanding of how we will develop moving forward. The primary goal with my classes is to help you gain skills in BJJ as fast as possible. My secondary goal is for you to have fun, which is hopefully a derivative of the primary goal, all while maintaining a safe environment in which to experiment and explore different ways to achieve objectives that I have designed into practice. In order to get better at BJJ submission grappling, you've likely already heard me use these two terms in class regularly: experimentation and exploration, as they are the biggest tools in our learning arsenal. They help us to develop skills quicker than other methods. This is according to the latest skill acquisition science, and the scientific basis for this is called ecological dynamics. And the pedagogy, otherwise known as the coaching methodology, is called the constraints-led approach. Sometimes I may use language that makes me look pretentious, pompous, like a snob, but I swear I'm not trying to be. I'm simply using some of the language from the science, hopefully in a way that suits the situation and makes it easier to understand overall. Now, you are more than welcome to completely disregard the science behind the class design. I really just want you to enjoy yourself, so don't feel pressured. For the time being, I want you on the mats, learning, rolling, and asking questions. But if you are ever interested in the science,
it'd be a lot cooler if you did.
I can direct you to some books that introduce the topic in a natural and non-textbooky, sciencey type of way, such as Rob Gray's How We Learn to Move. By now you know that I play at least 3 of the modes of the grappling game in every class: standing, guard, control. There are many reasons why we play them all, but for me the 3 key reasons are: 1, we touch on every part of the game each time we get together. 2, we begin to understand the connection between the 3 modes of the game. And 3, we start to develop an understanding of the universal concepts that are in play across all modes of the game. You'll also notice that we play the games at full speed, also known as in an alive manner. There is a reason for this, and if you are interested about learning more about my thoughts regarding aliveness in martial arts, check out Matt Thornton of SBG, as his books are incredible on the subject. Playing these games in an alive manner means we can see how we interact with our opponent and how our opponent interacts with us. It's called perception-action coupling in ecological dynamics. Let's look at an example of a practice that is not alive. Imagine if I was teaching you to catch a ball and I told you to pretend there was a ball in my hand, and then I'd pretend to throw it at you, and then you have to catch an imaginary ball. And when you catch it, I then tell you you haven't caught it. I tell you that your catching form needs work, that you should use softer pressure on your fingers, or that your knees weren't bent at the correct angle, and that you needed to focus on my throwing arm. It's pretty obvious you wouldn't learn to catch a ball that way. A better way would be to roll you the ball until you catch it a few times, then an underarm softball throw, then maybe an overarm lob, and then get faster and faster at it. We might even use a bigger ball to start off with so that your visual field of perception has something bigger to target. In order to act upon something, and that's what we're trying to do when we're grappling, is we learn how to perceive and act. Act to perceive, i.e. do something for a reaction, and then perceive to act in a nice little cycle. Seems pretty simple. Now, you've already experienced one of the classes, so you'll know it has a basic structure. We have a 4 to 5 minute prehab session at the start of the class. This is mostly for some oldies like myself who need some rehab, prehab, injury prevention. And I would strongly suggest warming yourself up in any way that you feel necessary. In saying that, we do have a fairly dynamic striking based warm-up. Doesn't have any direct hits, is more like a tag, but it works on head head movement and foot movement. It warms up our joints and improves our speed. Then usually we go on to a connection game, essentially looking to get some sort of connection with our opponent. Then, depending on the day of the week, for example, this week is takedown week, our lesson plan portions are loosely split into 60% standing, 20% guard, 20% control. So in takedown week, there'll be more focus on the standing portion of class. Today we looked at getting our chest on the person's back or our chest on their thigh with our hands clasped around the thigh. And we'll explore takedowns from these various positions as the week progresses. I'll also look to revise some recent week's material from the past few months for the other two portions of the class. In this week, we'll be looking at half guard games from about a month ago, hopefully reinforcing and using the concept of interleaving to help strengthen the memory of those who did the classes, but also to touch on them for the people who are new to the classes so that when they roll with the established students, they don't feel like this.
Right then, the meeting has officially come to order. Let us all say the pledge. I am an ice shark, not a mindless eating machine. If I am to change this image, I must first change myself. Fish are friends, not food.
Today, the last 20% of the class was dedicated to back control. The goal of the person on the back was to keep their chest on their back. The goal for the person on the front was looking to get their back on the mats with their forearm on the opponent's chest. And this wraps up the class before we move into free rolls. During free rolls, you're welcome to partake or watch. I recommend partaking, but it's up to you. The best thing to do is to try and remember the principles of the lesson that we've just done, which usually have an underlying theme that references the entire game, which is control and immobilize a limb to gain access to the center mass, to then control the center mass, to then isolate and immobilize a limb to attack it. Just remember, if at any time you feel scared or even just unsure if you're in danger, tap the person repeatedly and with purpose. Either with your hand or foot, either on the person or on the floor, loud enough to make a big noise, or by simply yelling tap. I would prefer you use the latter as it is more definitive, and you will often hear me, when I am being submitted, yelling tap. This is because often your tapping hand can get caught. There is absolutely no shame in tapping. Tapping is proof that you are exploring and experimenting. If you are not tapping, you are not getting better. I want you to know you can ask me anything. Just also know that when I answer questions, I will try to do it in a way that brings attention to areas you need to focus on, rather than flat out giving you an answer that works for me, because as I've said to you already, there is no perfect technique. What works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. And I want you to take the area of focus and go and test it out. I'm looking forward to training with you in the future. If you'd like to know more, go to battlefieldsgrappling.com.au and fill in the form. Everyone else, like, comment, subscribe.